Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network from magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today on the iNetrepreneur Network's iNetrepreneur Radio Show. I am your host, Robert W. Jones, and today, W is just for wow. We have an amazing organization that's on with us today, and I'm so excited to do something a little bit differently that I haven't done before. And we're gonna go rogue. We are gonna go rogue. I mean, it's 110 in Phoenix, 108 in California right now. I believe Temecula. I mean, the world's on fire. As some of us say, sometimes we want to share that fire, but today I can go with just a nice cold ice pack. But, again, I'm so excited for having this special show. And today we're going to be talking about Fighters for Hope. Fighters for Hope is an organization that has a focused mission on helping increase awareness of those out there, specifically the mental health issues, the suicidal thoughts, the stigma about having conversations, who are in the space of need of hope and inspiration and a little bit of support. And so today with my panel, I'm going to bring them on right now because I want to make the most of this time and I want to create the greatest amount of impact that we can provide on the iNetrepreneur Radio Show today. And so my first guest, I'm bringing him in, is Jeff Morris. Hey, Jeff, how are you doing?
Hoorah, Marine. How are you?
Hoorah! My second host today is Eric Ranks. How are you doing, Eric?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here, Eric. And also, I'm starting to think that John and I are co-hosts on this show. I have Mr. John Verrico with Fighters for Hope as well. John, how are you?
I'm great. How's everybody?
Right,
I'm so glad to be
great.
Together with the team.
So, I really want to create a lot of positivity, but I also want to create, some reality. And the reality is that we are not in the same space now as we were 5 years ago, and certainly not 10 or even 25 years ago. We are in a space, where as a veteran as myself, I look around and I'm wondering what is going on out there. And for me, I have a pride of being a veteran, of serving my country and serving it proudly for 6 years of my life. And that was 1983 to 1990. I looked at my paperwork and I got out January 16th, 1990. So I made the 90s, but just by a little bit. So I'm younger than you think, everyone. No, just kidding. But I'm alarmed. I am alarmed by what's going out there.
You are.
And so today, what I would like to do is I would like to actually have each one of my panel members today, Eric, Jeff, and John, first give an introduction of who they are, and that what they offer, in their businesses. And then what I would like to do is have a conversation on, why you and why now. Jeff, tell us a little bit about your time in the military and your background, so people can get a perspective on who you are.
Yeah. So Robert, briefly, I'm a Marine like you, right? We're cut from the same cloth. I served in the late 80s, mid 80s to the mid 90s. I was then put out. I had some trauma. I was actually shot, carjacked. And my mission for trauma comes from my early experience with trauma from being carjacked. So part of the reason I'm part of FFH today is because of some of the trauma I've experienced while I was in the military, but not on active duty.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that and insight. And it also provides some why. John, a little bit about your background and also a little bit about your why. We may be having trouble with the feed with John Verrico. Eric, would you like to chime in, please?
Yeah, for sure. So my story also involves trauma, but my trauma was a little different. Mine's health related, from leukemia, internal bleeding, ruptured esophagus, like different kind of medical things that cause physical and mental pain within me, which those things led me starting a nonprofit, the Veterans Connection, in 2012, focused on military veterans and first responder mental health and suicide prevention. And then real quick, I'll mention the other two projects, 22 Salute. I launched that in 2020, the end of 2021, to raise funds for the nonprofit. It was created a social enterprise. It's too many nonprofits out there get stuck. They're not raising enough funds, and so they're not making the impact they want. And I wanted to change that. And now I'm involved with Fighters for Hope so that I can take the suicide mission to underprivileged communities, our youth, just different aspects outside of just veterans and first responders that I've served for so many years.
Yeah, thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate that. I'm going to attempt to see if John is able to hear us and join in. John, would you like to chime in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I came from a military background, like you and Jeff. I was in the Navy. Well, you guys were in the Marines. You guys were doing the real work. I was safe aboard a ship. I did 25 years between active and reserve during that time. But the separations from family, 8-9 months at a clip, sometimes with no contact. It's very stressful on a family. I think we all realize that. Anybody who's been deployed understands that. No contact. It's very stressful, and for some of my shipmates, it was too stressful, and so I lost several shipmates to suicide over the years. And then, in civilian life, I lost a good friend to suicide as well. And so I've always tried to help keep people from circling the drain, from finding some hope, from finding some light in their darkness. And so that's how I created Share Your Fire, is basically to show people where, that they matter, that they make a difference, no matter what they're going through, that they have a light to share with the world. So, and of course I had to join in when this group was formed. We're all like-minded, heart-centered individuals that are kind of in this space. And it was just a natural yes when they said, "Would you like to join the team?"
Thank you for that. Jeffrey, I want to start the conversation with you today. And maybe it's because you're a Marine, or maybe it's just because you're living in the heat like I am. But, one of the things that I think that people don't understand is, there's a failure of connection. There's a failure of people feeling a part of a team, or a part of a community, or a part of this digital world that we're coming into. And connection plays a really big role into, what life looks like here in, 2024. And, one of the things that I brought to the world was the art of connection, but it also brought my heart to Fighters for Hope, because part of my goal is to create places, where people connect again, where they can feel safe, where they can feel heard, where they can feel like they can provide impact and be seen again. Tell us, in your expertise, do you agree that there is there is a connection crisis that's actually leading to this crisis called suicide?
Absolutely. There's definitely ties in. And the word that you're talking about, Robert, is called psychological safety. Right. And the really simple definition of that is people have a voice, they feel seen, valued, and heard. More importantly, they feel like they can belong to something bigger than themselves. right? So when we start thinking about a sense of identity, like who am I in this world, right? A sense of acceptance. Hey, I'm okay. I'm a 10 at something, right? And then a place to find security without judgment, where you can just be you and be your 10. And then finding a meaningful purpose, a way to contribute based on your talents that is meaningful to you. When we think about those 4 pillars, identity, acceptance, security, and purpose or passion, those are the things that FFH is anchoring its mission on. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Which brings us to other places, and and there's an identity crisis out there. I mean, I never would have thought back when I was, growing up in Texas, that we would actually have to teach people how to be authentic again. I mean, teaching people how to be authentic, and that's an industry. We can't just be us. We have to learn how to be us. That's the craziest stuff I've ever heard of. John, you actually bring a lot of that to the table, helping people, yes, of course, share their fire, but part of your training is really getting people to be authentic in their voice. Tell us a little bit about, why that resonates with you and why it's so meaningful for you to be able to speak on this topic.
Thank you. First of all, do I have to pay you every time you say share your fire? I'm just wondering if I have to. No, but thank you though. But in all seriousness, so many of us we find ourselves in a place of fearing criticism and being labeled and all these things. And so it makes it very challenging for us to want to be ourselves. People are afraid to be themselves now. And it's become an actual crisis. I grew up in that era. I grew up in that whole thing. I was a little kid in school. I was picked on by bullies all the time. But I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be friendly. I wanted to be the extrovert that I am inside. But so, for me, it was really important to finally be able to become myself and to be able to share myself. So what I do is I try to help people to find that relevance in themselves, to realize that they are important and that they do have a story to tell and they do have a story to share, and that people want to know it, and they don't want to know some fake story. They want to know you as a real individual.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of what I do, is helping people to be able to share their authenticity and their vulnerability. And that's where people really get afraid.
And really a big part of this, being able to share from the inside out, it starts on the inside and it manifests in connection, and for some of us, it takes a lot of courage to do that, but here we are, Eric. And, one of the things that I've always thought was very meaningful to me is your business name, 22 Salute. And, never I would have thought in my lifetime that 22 Salute is nowhere near, the record numbers of our military brothers in service who are out there, some putting their life on this line, some just doing the behind the scenes activities that provides, for those that are out on the front lines. But is it an epidemic in our school system? Is it an epidemic with at-risk youth? Is it an epidemic with indigenous peoples? Absolutely. But it's really prevalent throughout society, and nowhere does it really show up than our military community. Talk about, 22 Salute, and what does that mean? And how does that compare to what's going on with the suicide rates in the military?
Yeah, so I want to start that off with talking about the real numbers. So the real numbers, the Department of Defense talks a lot about a 22 number. A lot of people have heard about doing 22 push-ups a day, things like that. But that study was based on just 9 states. And when you actually expand that across the United States and look at the true numbers, it's between 40 to 60 a day. And Of course, 22 Salute, where I don't have the marketing budget to try to take on the number the Department of Defense is putting out there. But in all seriousness, it's an issue. It's 40 to 60 a day. The first responder community is 10% higher than the general population. Both of these populations have, there's several things that contribute to it. One, the trauma that they experience. And I want to say this very clearly for people who aren't as connected to the military, is somebody doesn't have to have seen a day of battle to still have trauma and PTSD. There's several military people that I've been in contact with that have ended up taking their life, or another brother or sister of theirs who never saw a day of battle. So don't assume that we're now living in a time where we're not in war right now, that the numbers are going to change. That's not the case. So I want to be really clear of that. And also be clear about like holidays. We have the September 11th coming up very shortly. I wouldn't say it's a holiday. That was that wrong name for it. We just finished Labor Day. But September 11th is coming up. That's actually one of the highest dates for suicide in our veteran community.
Yeah.
And so people need to remember the people they know around them that served. We had a mass amount of people join the military after 9/11, but it's also a huge number of days that people commit suicide. So it's really important that we're thoughtful and we reach out. You guys talked about community earlier on this. You and Jeffery were talking about that. And one of the best ways to save a life is just for people to know that they're loved and cared about. So just reaching out, you don't have to pry into their life and figure out, are they, what they're going through. Yes. That doesn't matter. They just need to know that somebody is standing next to them and is there to support them.
Thank you for that, Eric. I appreciate you bringing out some stats there, and really, if you take a calculator out and you take 50 times 365 days a year, you're getting at the levels where suicides on an annual basis are 1/3 of the number of people who died in the Vietnam War. In 1 year, that's how many suicides we have going on. And it's tragic for me to think about it, that the number is so high. And that's why, for me, this matters so much. For those who don't know my personal story, my Marine buddy, Michael, was in San Diego, and he drove to a Sequanza casino, and he was really living life, and he had not the war on the outside, he had the war on the inside. And see, a lot of people don't understand is, we proudly serve, but there's not just the war that's out there that you see in the media. The real war is the war inside the heart and the head. And I remember thinking, we were supposed to go out and barbecue that night. And next thing I know, I got the call, and state trooper, and my friend was gone. And that was really, really hard for me. And unfortunately, here we are in San Diego. He had no help. He had no help. And it wasn't because it didn't exist. He just didn't know where it resided. And that is sometimes the worst thing. It's not that it's not there. It's not knowing where to go to get them there, or having that place for them to be. And that's why, for me, Fighters for Hope, is so important, which leads me to another thing, with this war on the inside. And I'm going to go to Jeffrey Morris, with Dream Smart, and there's a lot of people, and they're not living dream, and they're not living the dream, and they're not living smart, because they're warring within themselves. And one of the things that I really have an issue with at times is our media doesn't help, and the programming that is put out there on who we are and what we look like doesn't help either. Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about the role that media does and how it actually works very contrary to what we're trying to accomplish in Fighters for Hope.
Well, I'm not a social media expert, but I have 6 kids, so they're all on social media,
Mhm.
right? So I do have a little bit of an understanding, and it comes back to what we were talking about before: is where do we begin to find a sense of community of people who can love us and appreciate us for who we really are, not what we pretend to be on Instagram or Facebook or some of the other social media platforms where there's a lot of judgment and criticisms and influencers. To John's point around vulnerability, can you imagine being vulnerable on any social media platform and not getting just waylaid?
Right.
But what we know about a sense of identity, when you can show up and be your real self and you can find community, right? You have an upward trajectory of doing some really incredible things. And social media oftentimes does not allow that space for you. Eric or John, anything to add to that?
I would add, when it comes to both social media and the regular media, both sides, is that their job is to create fear in people.
That's right.
So, and there's an awesome documentary about social media, and in fact, one of the guys that's in it is actually a friend of mine. I used to work for Pinterest, and he was one of the owners of Pinterest originally, and he left because of this. The social media companies were going out of their way to manipulate people. So they would put out content, the companies themselves putting out content to see how they could manipulate the American people and the worldwide. And they proved they could easily do it. People would be manipulated based on what they would put out. And so between social media and the real media, they create fear, they manipulate people, and then you have these filters making people think they have to be perfect.
You know, and I'm going to bring John in for this next part, because I understand John and part of his travel. Transition is a big part of the military life. And I still remember when I got out, it wasn't 24 years or 18 years. I mean, 6 years. And then all of a sudden I was out there, and you know, the world changes a lot in 6 years. Sometimes when you're on the inside of the military silo, you know, there's a lot of things that work in a certain way. And then you leave that silo to go out there. And, you know, at times, if you don't have community to go to, it's a very lonely world, you know. So when I went back to Texas and I hadn't been there for over half a decade, you know, life had changed and everything moved on, and I felt misplaced. And that's true for a lot of people that are in the military. You know, talk to transition, John, you know, because transition's just not for military. You know, we're talking even through corporations, people who might have worked for a corporation for 10, 20, 30 years, and then they become an entrepreneur. You know, they leave the comforts of things that type of lifestyle has, and they have no community. Because one of the things I say, Jeff, Eric, and John, and everyone out there, you know, entrepreneurs don't fail because they're not smart, or they don't have energy, or they don't have vision or passion. You know, many of them, you know, they actually, you know, lack success because of loneliness. And for some, that loneliness actually leads down to, you know, suicide. And a lot of people don't know that entrepreneurial pursuits also has higher the national average than, you know, other, let's say, industry designations. And so, you know, John, let's talk about transition just for a few minutes.
You know, you talk about transition. We've talked a lot about military transition and finding coming out of that or losing that sense of community, that sense of belonging. You mentioned in the corporate world, and it happens to so many people in so many different ways. Major changes happen in people's lives, and all of a sudden they've lost their identity. They've lost what they relate to. Look at you know, athletes who are aging out and can no longer do things, or somebody who's gotten some sort of an injury can no longer do the things or the kind of work that they used to do. Or like you said, a company or organization, closes its doors or they lose their job for some reason, and what they know has been taken away from them. And then there's this sense of, well, where do I belong? What do I do now? What is my new mission in the world? Where's my place in the world? What use am I now? And so, not only does this happen in all sorts of transitions, but just look at the older Americans. Older Americans are only about 16% of the population, but they make up 22% of the suicides. Actually have the highest rate than any other kind of group of committing suicide. They've lost their sense of purpose. They lost their sense of community. They feel so alone. And so that's why it is so important to, like you said, to reach out, to show people that they still matter. They still make a difference. They still are important to people. They're still loved. And that's the piece that's so hard, because when people get into that mode, they don't want to admit that to anyone, and they don't ask for help. And that's where the stigma comes in. You got to be He-Man, man. You got to be able to take it on and take on the world, and nothing's going to bother me. So you don't feel lonely, that you feel lost, that you don't know what to do next, and you don't want to ask for help. And that's where we're trying to do with Fighters for Hope, is to show people that it's okay to ask for help, and show them how to get that help and become part of a community.
Thank you, John. We're going to take a little bit of break right now, and then we're going to come back in, and I want to talk a little bit about Fighters for Hope itself, and also the co-founder, 5-time international kickboxing champion Randy Blake, and also the co-founder Buddy Thornton. So everyone, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we'll be back on this special episode of the iNetrepreneur Radio, and that's for the connectors from Fighters for Hope. All right, welcome back. We're here. I'm with Eric Ranks and John Verrico. Jeff Morris had to take a little bit longer break, but he's back as well. Those jarheads, we always do things differently, don't we, Jeff Morris?
Yes, sir.
It's really interesting because what you brought up, John, was something that was a perfect segue into this next session of this show today. And Randy Blake, wonderful young man, an extremely powerful young man, and it's hard to believe that he was ever bullied at any time in his life, but he was, and and he's kind of taken up what I would say, taken up the sword for the cause, and is really out there as a part of Fighters for Hope. And although he was not a veteran himself, he has the heart of a champion, and that's what I really respect about Randy Thornton. He has the heart of a champion, but with that, sometimes being a champion is a very lonely place. But he chose to be the opposite. He chose to embrace others and bring people with them. And Eric, I would like you to kind of speak first to, Randy Blake's character, and just one thing about him that, maybe we could poke fun of him later, but that we may not know about him.
Well, yes. I mean, just to reinforce what you said of how he became, in martial arts and a world kickboxer is he was bullied as a kid. His aunt picked him up from school one day and he had a big wad of spit just running down the side of his face. And his aunt got with his mom and dad and said, hey, I think we should get him in martial arts. And, that started his journey. And one thing I'll say about him is he's probably, as a champion, 5-time world kickboxing champion, he's probably one of the most humble people you'll meet. And you'll never see him out there bragging about being a 5-time world kickboxing champion. If anything, he's going to brag about being the world's greatest dad. So,
absolutely. And John, I want you to, speak to Buddy Thornton, the other co-founder, and speak to his heart. And, I know that you're good friends with Buddy, and, and really what's really great about this is, when you're really with the right people, I always say when you're a friend of mine, it's not like short-term insurance. It's like whole life insurance. You're stuck with me for life. And the quality of people that I have found in my life, really in the last 5 years, a lot of it's the art of connection and the causes that I get to be a part of. I've made better, deeper connections in the last 5 years than I have, in the last 35 years. And I'm very grateful for that. And Buddy is one of my very good friends. John, I would love for you to speak a little bit about Buddy and how you see him through your eyes.
I was fortunate enough to meet actually all of you for the first time at the Military Influencers Conference in 2023. And we were all out there together representing the Art of Connection book series and the iNet entrepreneur community. And Buddy just, he was this most welcoming soul. And at that time, there was something going on in my family where we had someone in my family who had attempted suicide and was actually caught getting ready to try it a second time. And Buddy just leapt right into it and said, do you want me to talk to him? I will reach out. I will. And he was just there, ready to help. And that defines Buddy right there. He sees someone in need and he wants to help. And that is a contagious attitude when you're around.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeffrey, would you
read that warmth and heart?
Yeah, I agree. And Jeffrey, would you like to chime in on either Randy or Buddy or both?
Sure, I can speak to both of them. To Eric's point, Randy's probably one of the most humble champions I've met. I don't think I've ever heard him mention that he's a 5-time world kickbox champion. I often have to tell people that and put him in front of him and he'll sign an autograph. But I know the title he wears, the proudest, is the world's best dad. But it goes a little different. I can't remember what it is, but essentially it's the world's best dad. And I can say that the veracity and the champion's heart that he brought to the ring, he will bring that very same tenacity and veracity to FFH, right? As he begins a different journey and starts to spread his message of why we fight for hope. And then Buddy, same thing, humble. He's a servant. He's a community builder in our Dream Smart language. So no surprise, he's a great connector of people and has a lot of knowledge around mental well-being, total well-being, suicide prevention. So that team together as co-founders is very powerful. And I can't wait to continue to do more work with FFH and those two leading and sharing the vision.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Again, I'm with Jeff Morris. Yeah. I'm with Jeff Morris.
Randy calls himself the daddest man in the world.
The daddest. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Right. The daddest man in the world.
Yeah. Again, I'm here with 3 of the members with Fighters for Hope. I'm a member with Fighters for Hope as well. Jeff Morris, he is owner and CEO of Dream Smart Behavioral Solutions. I'm also here with Eric Ranks. He's with Fighters for Hope, but he also has 22 Salute. He is the CEO and owner and thought leader behind that. And also John Verrico with Fighters for Hope and Share Your Fire. I always like to do, John's great because he creates like little magician out of the box tricks. Fighters for Hope. Fighters for Hope. I'm gonna read what Fighters for Hope is because I want to make sure that we set the ground right, and it also comes across on all the AI that transcribes this particular program for everyone. We can be found at fightersforhope.org. Again, that's fightersforhope.org. Fighters for Hope has a focused mission to increase awareness about mental health issues and to remove the stigma about having meaningful conversations about suicide ideation and prevention. Through our 2 layers of message delivery, we provide firsthand deliverables to audiences at venues across the nation with heartfelt passion and intentional professionalism. And Fighters for Hope, it's so much more than what that mission states. But like any mission, you can only have so many words. And what I would like to do is I'd like to start with you, Eric. You came on board kind of really early in the process, and you are the president of Fighters for Hope. And in your own words, what is Fighters for Hope, and what is its meaning for you and those who you provide awareness for?
So the meaning for me is it's a vehicle for us to help people who are being bullied, people who are struggling with PTSD, people which, and I'm glad I got Buddy kind of focused on it. I pushed to have it changed to PTSI because it's an injury, not a disorder. And I was pushing that pretty hard, and he definitely made that change, which is awesome. And STI, sexual trauma, like we're hitting transition, like we're hitting a lot of tough pieces in people's lives. And there's a lot of communities that are suffering from all these different things. You look at Randy Blake, you think, oh, that guy wouldn't have gone through bullying. Or I've introduced to Fighters for Hope Sean Kanan, who was in Mike Barnes in Karate Kid 3 and also on Cobra Kai series. Again, he was bullied. You wouldn't, as successful as he is, you wouldn't. Unfortunately, our world, it doesn't matter what background you come from, what race you come from, what part of the country you come from. People are getting hit with a lot of things that are really affecting their quality of life and how they process life. And Fighters for Hope to me is a way for us to bring them hope, bring them healing, and bring them prosperity in their life.
Yeah, I love that. And, Jeffrey, I want to bring you in on this because, really, life is in many ways, it's all about processes. It's all about how you receive information, disseminate that information, and you create some type of action from that. And being in the behavioral sciences, I'm sure you have a place in your mind on what Fighters for Hope is and how you want to see it manifest. Tell us a little bit about your part in this journey that you're taking up.
Sure. It's as I mentioned before, Robert, Dream Smart really, its brand has evolved into a behavioral wellness brand and a total well-being brand, like where we build high trust cultures or high trust individuals. We build psychologically safe environments, whether they be military or the classroom or the corporate boardroom, psychologically safe individuals as well. And then we focus on a total well-being of everyone. That's mind, body, soul. And one thing that we do that very few people do is we focus on finance. It's one of the greatest stressors for mental well-being that's not ever mentioned. So those 4 pillars that I keep talking about, Robert, through Fighters for Hope and through some of the things that Eric's doing with the Veterans Readiness Program, we're really going to focus on giving people that sense of identity. And we do it with that superpower language, the behavior superpowers. It's a really creative way for us to say that you matter and you're special. We're going to give them a place where they can be accepted and have an aligned language, right? And then we're going to give them a sense of security because we're going to provide a bunch of resources and a place for veterans and people to process, and then put them on that meaningful pathway based on who they are, not what they want to become or what someone's told them they are, really based on their real true talent and the meaningful contribution they want to make to the world.
You know, and I think that nearly everyone wants to be in the space of creating a meaningful contribution to the world. I think it's a part of the thing that you know, in myself, I've seen, you know, over time, it's, you know, fulfillment just isn't for self. Fulfillment is also about, you know, how am I using my gifts to help others feel fulfilled as well. And, you know, and that's what I think that this journey is with Fighters for Hope. You know, Fighters for Hope is a name, you know, but the brand really is about, you know, taking hope and turning it into an action, you know, and an action of self-discovery, you know, that allows personal growth to overcome what some would call demons. And so, you know, and you know, and John, you know, you're great from the standpoint of just, you know, I still remember that first time, and I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about the first time we had that phone call, and what was supposed to be, you know, 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, turned into like about an hour and a half. And I knew when we connected that there would always be a connection through us, you know. But one of the big things that you really talk about is you know, that word community, and having a safe space and being able to be vulnerable. Or, you know, what I've learned through my studying, you know, is there's, you know, the strengths and the struggles, you know, having a safe place to be able to allow both to occur. You know, you provide, you know, that safe space, and you provide a very humble and an amazing environment, you know, within the iNetrepreneur network community, as well as the Art of Connection community. And I can't think that it will be any other way than that in the FFH community. You know, when you look at community, you know, my question for you is do we really travel farther and faster, you know, together than apart? And why is that?
Oh, wow. That is such a deep question, but it is also the obvious answer is yes, we do. And because, you know, we can't do anything alone. If you think about it, there's absolutely nothing we can do alone. We're talking here today because somebody created, you know, the Zoom platform or the technology that we can use to communicate. If you think about that, all these people that are all about themselves and they think, oh, I'm the greatest thing in the world. Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, you're wearing nice clothes because somebody made those clothes. You're able to drive and get to your job and wherever it is that you're making your multi-million dollars of money because somebody's willing to pay you. You know, you couldn't do those things if somebody wasn't willing to pay you. You couldn't get to where you needed to go if somebody wasn't maintaining the roads. So we need every single body on this planet to do all of the things. And that's what it comes down to when we realize that we are not alone in anything that we do. And we cannot do it alone. We have to do things in tandem with each other. You know, our society has made it very stressful for people, putting stresses on you have to be this, you have to be perfect, you have to meet all these requirements. And, you know, Eric, you brought up earlier, you know, the fear that is put out there. You know, everybody's suffering from the fear of missing out, right? They're afraid they're not gonna be like the Joneses or well, didn't mean that Jones, but yes, everybody wants to be like Robert Jones. But, you know, we're always so worried about trying to compare ourselves to others. The only person we need to compare ourselves to is who we were yesterday and how we can improve the next day. And instead of looking at the differences that we have amongst each other, let's look at what we have in common. We have something in common with everybody on this planet, no matter what. Maybe we both like the same sports teams. Maybe we're both in the military. Maybe we both like this kind of car. Maybe we both eat at Taco Bell. Whatever it is, there's always something that we can connect with somebody else. and remembering that we have connections to each other and not differences from each other. What makes us different makes us special, and we can compound on that, and that helps us to change and grow.
Yeah, and why I love this as well is, the healthier our society is, because that's really, what we're trying to do here, or what we are doing here, is we're righting the ship again, and people, I've been told this, I'm like, oh my gosh, not another organization that's trying to prevent suicide, mental health services. And, the first thing I do is I look at them and I say, I tell you, we don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
I said, it's just the opposite. If I was to call it an industry, the mental health industry is growing far faster than the people are going into the industry to serve the people that are in this crisis. It's not about that, it's not about not another one. It's about, like, how can we form more of them? It's really, really important. Now I want to
There may be, if I can just say, there may
Mhm.
be so many organizations out there in this space, but the suicide rate continues to climb.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is what I'm looking at. It's like, we need more in this space. And, and some of the things I'm going to come back to Eric here, and I want to talk about, some tools and resources. And you have someone, but the biggest one that I know of out the gate is 988. 988 is a number, and it has a specific purpose, for anyone who's struggling in the mental health space. Eric, talk about 988, and you also embrace that in your brand. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of, time to discuss that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah. A couple of years ago, Congress passed a bill that put 988 as a national number. And there's even a specific number option for the veteran community. It's still 988, but you push a certain, I think it's 1 for, yeah, it's the first time. I mean, yeah, we all had 911, and it would get dispatched to whoever was the best person to take that call. But it's the first time that we had a dedicated number that was consistent nationwide versus every state, every city kind of was doing the mental health kind of their own way. Now we have a consistent all across the country. And I definitely embrace that, both in the Veterans Connection and 22 Salute. If you go to our website through your phone, on the bottom of our page, you can click the 988 button. It'll automatically pop up the text number, and you could text for help. If you wanted to dial, it'll automatically dial. It also has a chat with a live person on both of those websites. And then we're the first spirits brand out there to put the Suicide Crisis Line on the back of all of our products. It's unfortunately, alcohol can be a contributing factor to mental health and also suicide. And I wanted to be a difference in the industry. People are going to use alcohol with or without me. But if I can change the tide and make it more of a social gathering and not as something that's used as a coping mechanism, I made it so it's really easy for people to find the help they need right from the product. And my goal, and people who I'm looking for investors right now, so they probably don't want to hear this, but it's transparent and it's true. I would rather someone not pick up the bottle and purchase it off the shelf and go out the door and call that Suicide Crisis Line. For me, it's not about selling a product. It's about saving a life. The product is only a means to fund a veteran and first responder nonprofit to save lives. So I'd rather not sell a product if it was a difference between someone using it responsibly or unresponsibly.
Well, Eric, and so here's something that I just want to kind of bring up, because I really thought about that before, and in my mind, it's like, from cope to hope. And what I mean by that is, maybe we should also look at it and, here's my bottle. And maybe instead of this being the last I ever drink, maybe I look at that and I dial that number and it's the last time I ever drink this. And so I think, part of what you're doing is you never know what's behind the mind or in the mind of the person who picks up that drink. It might be the very number that they see that needs to be there to say, hey, it's time to get your life on straight and see with a clarity that you hadn't had ever or even for a long time. So I would prefer to think of that in the manner of it's there to be a game changer for someone who's ready to, change those rules and flip that script. So
yeah, it's a chance for, it is a game changer to flip the script. It's also a chance to get in front of people if they didn't have connection and someone got in front of them. In their darkest hour, we have a chance, like you said, to flip the script. It's the only product. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. But it's the only product I know, and this happens constantly. It's the only product I know is somebody walks into like a grocery store, because we're in a lot of grocery stores. I'll use that example because I've been in many Nevada grocery stores. They can't sell it in the grocery stores in my state, but in Nevada grocery stores, and somebody comes up, learns about the product, and they break down in tears, and they come give me a huge hug and say thank you, and then they tell me a story of how mental health or suicides affected their life. I don't know any other product that someone walks in to buy a loaf of bread and they break down in tears thanking you. That just doesn't happen. We're having conversations on the retail level that most people don't want to have. People don't want to talk about mental health and suicide. It's kind of let's just push that to the side. And I say no. Like, we're at an epidemic, especially after COVID, with all the isolation that happened with COVID, that increased it even more. And this is a separate topic, but I want to touch on it before we run out of time, because we're basically out of time. One thing that myself and Jeff are working on is an app. Jeff has kind of hinted on it at the beginning of this call. But, one thing unique about Fighters for Hope is we can go in and we can make a difference and an impact there at that time. We're going to follow that up with an app that gives them resources all the time that will be put out through Fighters for Hope, through the Veterans Connection. Dream Start's a partner of it. And so Fighters for Hope isn't we're just going to go into the city and we're gone. We're going to make sure people are taken care of and have the resources continuously. We're here to actually make a difference, and not just we came and did an event in your city and maybe we'll see you in 6 months. That's not what we're about. That's not what we're going to do. And so I want it to be clear that we're here to support people long term.
Yeah, we're not here to collect Emmys. We're here to help people fight their demons. And I think that that's very important for us. We're coming down to the end of the show, and what are our needs? Jeffrey, John, Eric, we're creating an app, we're raising awareness, and one of the things I see, we have programs, you can donate and you can reach out, you can volunteer, let's discuss a few of the ways that people who have watched this program, I've said that we're at fightersforhope.org, and what are some of the needs that we have within the Fighters for Hope organization?
Eric, why don't you start?
So some of the things that Fighters for Hope needs, of course, it's a newer organization. It has the Veterans Connection behind it as a fiscal sponsor right now. But as a newer organization, of course, we need funding for us to go city by city and talk to these school systems, get in and talk to the kids in the school systems, go visit the tribes in these different states, go talk to CEOs about how to create a more a healthy environment for their employees so that they're happy, they have good mental health, things like that. Like that all takes money. For us to travel the country and speak and stuff, it takes money. So that's one of our things. We also need people reaching out. Like if you're a school district, you run a school district and you want to have us come talk to your students, reach out. If you're a corporation that aligns with our mission and wants us to come talk, reach out. So that's one. I guess that's two. And then third, if you need help, reach out to us.
Yeah,
we have a lot of people on our board that have different skill sets that we can make sure we're connecting you with the right skill set to help you.
Yeah, and it's about the funding, and it's about sponsorship, and it's about celebrities helping raise awareness, but it's also about ground power. Just like in the military, all wars are won on the ground. And we're looking for what I would call soldiers in your own community. And if you would like, reach out to us. If you're in Dallas, if you're in Miami, if you're in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, reach out to us and let's start a local chapter. Let's start a local presence. And we're helped to provide support for you as well. And, go ahead, John. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I can add, bring us out, sponsor us to come out to your community and to work. Eric mentioned, we come talk to the kids. We also have anti-bullying programs that focus on the teachers and the staff and the parents and how to handle those kinds of situations. We have a variety of programs that can work with whole communities to help them build a sense of community and a safe place. So there's lots of programs that we offer, and but we can't, we are a small group and we can only go so far. So we do need people at the local level to help us to get events set up so that we can come in, bring our experts in and connect with your local experts so that we can put on a program together. And that's the biggest thing we're looking for is collaboration partners on this stuff as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, John.
And I will throw out one last factoid, and I will say, it is my personal mission. I wish that someday we can put 988 out of business, that it isn't needed anymore. Wouldn't that be a wonderful place to be?
Yeah, that is wonderful. I appreciate that. And Jeff, I'd like you to have the last word, in a couple of minutes are left. And again, I thank all of you for being on here, but Jeff, go ahead and have the last word if you like.
Well, I just want to chime in and say what an honor it was, Robert, for you to invite us today. It was a tremendous honor to be on this conversation with John, Share Your Fire, Eric from 22 Salute. But the other way that you can support us is the events that we're planning. We're planning a Boom Fest. We're planning to attend MCon. We're planning golf events. So not only are we looking for donations, but we're looking for ways that we can also, begin to generate interest and funds and have people in the community support us as well. So with that being said, I look forward to more conversations. We look forward to Randy and Buddy continuing to lead us. And thank you so much today. I'm honored to have been a part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Can I do one quick? I know you said he'd close it out, but one quick message. He just mentioned MCon. So MCon's coming up in October. That's in Las Vegas. We are looking for sponsors right now for that. So if you're listening to this and you want to find out how to be a title sponsor, reach out to us, because we're definitely looking for sponsorship for that event. And then he mentioned Boom Fest, which will coming up at the beginning of next year. So.
Yeah, and sponsors are in the thousands, but it's also down to even clearing out your, couch cushions. Every nickel, penny, and dime, is going somewhere that supports others. We are all a volunteer army, and as we used to be, we're voluntold. Well, we're actually getting to choose this particular volunteer position or post. So again, I want to thank my guests that are on the show for Fighters for Hope: Jeff Morris with Dream Smart Behavioral Solutions, Eric ranks with Fighters for Hope and 22 Salute, and John Verrico, Fighters for Hope and Share Your Fire. Thank you so much, guys. I say
Had
let's
to do that just for you.
Thank you. Let's not make this a one-trick pony. Let's do this again and again and again and keep getting this word out there. You guys have a great day. For more information, you can go to fightersforhope.org. That's fightersforhope.org. Make your presence known. Make your presence known with us, and let's care together and share together. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you for having us. Been
Thank
wonderful.
you, Robert.
Absolutely. You guys are great.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.